All right, so we're diving into the world of Kai Greene. He's obviously a bodybuilding legend, right? But what's so fascinating is that his energy, his drive, it goes way beyond the stage.
Absolutely. And what's really interesting is, he's an entrepreneur, an artist, a storyteller, and he's got this incredibly disciplined mindset.
It's like he's taken that regimented approach from bodybuilding, that discipline, and just channeled it into these like completely different arenas. And what I find so remarkable is how this ties back to his experience during the pandemic. That Vlad Yudin interview you sent over,
Yeah,
the one you wanted to unpack.
yeah. The one where he talks about how he used that time.
Exactly. Because when I first heard him talk about the pandemic, I was kind of bracing myself for like the typical, oh, gym closures were tough narrative, right?
Right.
But then he goes and says, this was my time to write, to develop, to launch new projects. I was floored.
It's like it highlights Kai's core principle of turning negatives into positives.
Yeah.
He didn't just adapt to the circumstances, he leveraged them.
He created this whole variety show, right? Dynamic Muscle Company NYC.
Yeah. Yeah, and he used it as a platform for both creativity and like pro-social messaging.
It's honestly incredible. It's like he saw this opportunity where so many others just saw roadblocks.
Mm-hmm.
And this proactive mindset, it even influences how he structures his day. This man wakes up at 4:30 a.m.
Oh, no way.
for cardio and work. I mean, I love my morning coffee, but come on.
Yeah, it sounds extreme. It sounds extreme, but when you listen to his reasoning, it makes sense. Like he's juggling multiple businesses, creative projects, and of course, maintaining that physique.
Yeah, it's got to take a lot of energy to do all that.
Right. He has to be incredibly deliberate with his time and energy.
And this discipline, this conscious effort to maximize his time, it actually connects back to his experiences with depression, which he surprisingly opened up about in this interview.
Yeah, that really struck me too. He spoke so candidly about it, about the importance of like finding purpose, staying active, focusing on opportunities. And I think it's just a powerful reminder that mental health struggles can affect anyone, even in elite athletes at the top of their game.
What I found really insightful was how he combats those darker moments, those down times. He channels that energy, that negative energy, into these creative pursuits, drawing, writing, even building this variety show. It's like he's taking control, transforming those feelings into something tangible and positive.
And that just speaks to his deep-seated belief in the power of thoughts to shape reality, right? Like he's been cultivating this mindset since he was a kid,
Yeah.
like long before the trophies and the accolades.
Yeah.
He talks about receiving Arnold Schwarzenegger's encyclopedia as a child.
I know, yeah.
And how that sparked this journey of self-education and visualization for him.
That story, when he was talking about that was incredible. He was already mimicking poses in the mirror. But that book, it became his roadmap. It's funny. I had a similar experience with a book about host speaker mentions a relevant personal experience briefly.
Yeah.
There's just something about those formative years that...
It becomes more than information. It's like a catalyst.
Totally.
And in Kai's case, it fueled his belief in setting goals, in the power of visualizing his desired reality.
Yeah, and that kind of brings us to his evolution from bodybuilder to businessman, right? Like he's created these fitness ebooks.
Right. And I have to admit, like, my initial thought was, okay, another athlete cash grab, right?
Sure.
But it's actually much deeper than that.
Oh, way deeper.
He talks about how these ebooks evolved from his meticulous training notebooks. Like he was already documenting everything, analyzing, refining his approach. It wasn't just about sharing workouts. It was about sharing a system for self-discipline and achieving your potential. And he emphasizes that this applies to like any field. Success, whether it's in bodybuilding, business, or art, it all requires that same level of commitment, that willingness to constantly learn and evolve. And it's interesting considering his advice to aspiring bodybuilders.
Oh, yeah. What was that all about?
He cautions against rushing to get a coach.
Really?
Yeah, he tells them to focus on like the fundamentals first, which seems kind of counterintuitive.
Totally. You'd think someone at his level would be all about expert guidance.
Yeah.
It threw me off too when I first heard it. But his reasoning is like, you've got to master yourself first. Figure out your own body.
Right.
He learned by making mistakes, by figuring out what worked for his, unique physique. It's like he's saying, like, build that foundation of self-reliance and then you seek out the tools to refine your craft.
It speaks to the importance of owning your journey, like not being afraid to experiment and learn from those experiences. cultivating that inner drive before relying on external validation.
Yeah, I like that.
And this self-mastery, this understanding of like your own strengths and weaknesses, it becomes even more crucial when you look at like the changing landscape of bodybuilding, especially with Phil Heath's comeback.
Oh,
It's
man.
like it's like two eras colliding, you know?
Totally. You've got Phil representing that, like, that old school, I don't know, like, focus on sheer size, those, like, massive lats.
Right now, for so long, that was the winning formula.
Right, exactly. But then Kai, he points out how the judging criteria, how they're evolving, right?
Right.
Like now there's a greater emphasis on aesthetics, on conditioning, on like a smaller, more streamlined waistline. It's not just about how much mass you can pack on anymore.
Right. It's not about, just getting bigger. It's about like the total package now.
He even uses this analogy of apples and oranges.
Oh, interesting.
You know, you can polish an apple to make it shine, but it's still fundamentally different from an orange.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder, like, are we moving away from, like, the mass monsters towards a more, I don't know, like, a more balanced, sustainable physique?
It's a really interesting question. And I think Kai's own journey reflects this shift too,
Mhm.
Like he's still incredibly disciplined, but there's a greater emphasis on longevity, on listening to your body, knowing when to push and when to hold back.
It's something he's learned the hard way, right? That, that go hard or go home mentality,
Right.
doesn't always serve you in the long run.
Absolutely.
There has to be a balance, between pushing your limits, but then also respecting your body's need for recovery and adaptation.
Absolutely. And that actually circles back to his earlier points about mental health.
Yeah.
It's all interconnected.
Oh, for sure.
Your physical well-being, it's intertwined with your emotional and mental state.
Mm.
It's about that holistic approach to self-improvement.
For someone who achieves such like incredible things on the bodybuilding stage, it's interesting. He seems so grounded throughout this whole interview and introspective, He's
Mhm.
clearly still passionate about the sport, but he seems to recognize the importance of evolving,
Yeah.
of adapting his methods to suit his current goals and priorities.
Yeah, he's not afraid to admit that he doesn't have all the answers. Like he's still learning and growing,
Yeah.
which I think makes him even more relatable.
Totally.
Even to those of us who wouldn't know a dumbbell from a kettlebell.
You're right. He's not preaching from some pedestal or anything. He's just sharing his journey
Yeah.
and his, struggles and his ongoing evolution. And that brings us back to your initial question about what is Kai Greene up to now? Like what brings him joy beyond the world of competitive bodybuilding?
Well, his answer is surprisingly simple. His work is his fun.
Wow.
It's like all these different passions, the bodybuilding, the entrepreneurship, the art, they all feed into each other, creating this tapestry of creative expression.
And when he talks about his work, you can just hear that passion in his voice,
Oh, yeah.
Like his graphic novel Chronicles of King Kai.
Right.
He's like really pouring himself into it, crafting this whole like universe with its own mythology, its own movement system. Like he's woven in all these life lessons into the story. It's just so much more than just like slapping his name on a product.
Yeah, it's another example of
Huh?
Pi defying expectations,
Yeah.
right? Like he could have just capitalized on his, bodybuilding fame and just like, cashed in, but he's chosen to like forge his own path, blurring the lines between like athlete, artist, and entrepreneur. And what's really incredible is how these different passions, they just like, they feed into each other.
Yeah.
He's not just building a business or writing a story. He's building a world, like a world that reflects him.
I think that's what makes his journey so inspiring. It reminds us that the next level isn't like a straight line, It's about constantly pushing your own boundaries, embracing new challenges, and just having the courage to express yourself authentically.
And it's about recognizing that the skills you develop in one area, they can be applied to countless others,
Oh, yeah.
Like Kai's bodybuilding journey. It taught him the power of like dedication and visualization and pushing past those perceived limitations. And he's using those same principles to fuel his creativity, his businesses, his own personal growth.
So what can we take away from all of this? What can we take away from this deep dive into the world of Kai Greene? I think the biggest lesson here is don't be afraid to define your own next level. What are you passionate about? What really like lights you up? What are you willing to pour your time and energy into, even if it means, going outside your comfort zone a little bit?
Yeah, and Kai Greene's journey is a testament to the idea that success isn't a destination, it's a process.
Mm-hmm.
It's about, embracing self-discovery,
Hmm.
facing challenges head on, and finding joy in the pursuit of your unique potential.
That's a great way to put it. And on that note, we'll leave you with this. What does your next level look like?